Zekthara's claws tapped against the control panel as his ship moved through the dark space around the third planet. The small blue and green world spun slowly below him, covered in white clouds. His yellow eyes studied the readings on his screen. This planet was full of life. Just like the report said, he was 8 feet tall and covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. His people, the Kethvari, had conquered 17 star systems in the past 1,000 years. They were the hunters of the galaxy. They were the predators that other species feared. And Zekthara was one of their best. His mission was simple. Study the creatures on this world called Earth. See if they were worth taking as slaves or if they should just be removed. The Kethvari Empire was always looking for new worlds to control. This one looked perfect for their needs. Zekthara had done this job many times before. He would land on a world, study the local creatures, and report back to his commanders. Most species were weak. They ran when they saw him. They begged for mercy. They offered him anything he wanted if he would just leave them alone. It was always the same. The ship's computer beeped. Warning lights flashed red across the control panel. Zekthara looked at the screen and his blood went cold. A massive solar flare was heading straight for his position. His ship was small and fast, built for scouting. Not for surviving this kind of space storm. He grabbed the controls and tried to turn away, but it was too late. The wave of energy hit his ship like a giant fist. The lights went out, the engines died, sparks flew from broken panels. The ship started spinning out of control toward the planet below. Zekthara strapped himself into his seat and held on. His ship was falling fast through the atmosphere. The hull grew hot from friction. He could smell burning metal and plastic. Warning alarms screamed in his ears. Through the front window he could see green forest rushing up to meet him. The crash was violent. His ship smashed through tall trees, bounced off rocks, and finally came to rest in a deep valley. Smoke poured from the broken hull. Zekthara hung upside down in his seat, blood running down his face. His left arm was broken, and his ribs hurt with each breath. But he was alive. His species healed fast. Already he could feel his bones starting to mend. The cuts on his face were closing. In a few hours he would be at full strength again. He cut himself free from his seat and crawled out of the wreckage. The forest around him was thick and green. Tall trees blocked most of the sunlight. He could hear birds singing and insects buzzing. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. It reminded him of the hunting grounds on his homeworld, but softer somehow. Less dangerous. Zekthara tested his weapons. His claws were sharp and strong. His scales could stop most bullets. His muscles could lift a full-grown human over his head. His senses were keen. He could smell creatures moving through the forest, hear their heartbeats, see their heat signatures. Everything about him was built for killing. He was examining the damage to his ship when he heard footsteps. Someone was coming through the forest. Zekthara smiled, showing his sharp teeth. His first contact with the local species. This would be easy. The human that appeared was tall and lean, wearing a green uniform and a wide hat. He had brown hair and kind eyes. He was carrying some kind of tool belt and a small radio. When he saw Zekthara standing next to the crashed ship, he stopped walking but did not run away. "Holy cow," the human said. "Are you okay?" That was some crash. Zekthara was confused. This creature should be running. It should be screaming. Instead, it was asking if he was hurt. He had never seen anything like this before. "I am fine," Zekthara said in English. His people had studied many languages from across the galaxy. "You are not afraid." The human walked closer. "Should I be? You look hurt." "Here, let me help you." He pulled out a small box from his belt. "I'm Jake Morrison. I'm a park ranger." I heard the crash from miles away. "Are you from that space program they don't tell us about?" Zekthara stared at this creature called Jake. On every other world, the first contact went the same way. The local creatures would see him and either attack or run. Most ran. The smart ones begged for mercy right away. But this human was offering to help him. "I am Zekthara," he said finally. "I am from far away. I bet you are," Jake said with a laugh. That's definitely not one of our ships. Come on, let me take a look at those cuts. I've got first aid training. Before Zekthara could react, Jake was beside him, looking at the wounds on his face. The human's hands were gentle as he cleaned the cuts with something from his first aid kit. Zekthara could have killed him easily. One swipe of his claws would have opened Jake's throat, but something held him back. These are healing fast, Jake said. That's good. Head wounds can be nasty. You're lucky to be alive after a crash like that. Why are you helping me? Zekthara asked. Jake looked at him with surprise. Why wouldn't? You're hurt, and you need help. That's what people do. He stepped back and looked at the crashed ship. This is way above my pay grade. I need to call this in to my boss. No, Zekthara said quickly. No authorities. Jake nodded slowly. Okay, I get it. You're not supposed to be here. But you can't stay out here alone. The weather's going to turn bad tonight. There's a storm coming in from the west. You need shelter and food. Zekthara had planned to kill the first human he met. He had planned to study their fear response and their attempts to fight back. Instead, he was being offered shelter and food by a creature that showed no fear at all. My town is about 10 miles from here, Jake said. Pine Ridge, it's small, but the people are friendly. Dr. Green can take a better look at your injuries. And Tony Rivera owns the garage. He's great with engines. Maybe he can help fix your ship. Your people will not be afraid of me? Zekthara asked. Jake looked him up and down. You're definitely different, taller than most folks. Those scales are pretty cool, but scared? Nah, we've got all kinds in Pine Ridge. Live and let live, you know? Zekthara followed Jake through the forest toward the human settlement. Every step confused him more. In all his years of hunting, in all the worlds he had visited, he had never met a species like this. They did not act like prey. They did not act like predators either. They acted like something else entirely. As they walked, Jake talked about his job, his family, his town. He asked questions about where Zekthara came from, but he did not push when the alien did not answer. He just kept talking, friendly and relaxed like they were old friends. You'll like Pine Ridge, Jake said. Small town, but good people. We don't get many visitors, so folks will be excited to meet you. Lisa Green is our doctor. She's seen everything. Tony Rivera can fix any engine ever made. Ben Clark runs the fire department. Carol Wright teaches at the school. They're all good people. Zekthara listened and tried to understand. Where he came from, strangers were enemies until proven otherwise. Trust was earned through strength and fear. But this human was trusting him completely, even though they had just met. Even though Zekthara was clearly not from Earth. The alien hunter began to wonder if these creatures were simply too stupid to understand danger, but that did not seem right either. Jake moved through the forest with skill and awareness. He knew every path, every sound, every change in the wind. He was not stupid. He was something else. As they reached the edge of the forest and Pine Ridge came into view, Zekthara realized he was about to learn something new about hunting, something that might change everything he thought he knew about predators and prey. Pine Ridge was not what Zekthara expected. The small town sat in a valley surrounded by tall mountains. Simple wooden buildings lined the main street. People walked along the sidewalks, going about their daily business. When Jake led him into town, heads turned to look at the 8-foot alien, but no one ran away screaming. Hey, Jake, called out a woman from across the street. Who's your friend? This is Zekthara, Jake called back. He had some trouble with his vehicle. I'm taking him to see Dr. Green. The woman waved and went back to her business. Just like that, no fear, no panic, no calling for help. Zekthara had never seen anything like it. On other worlds, his appearance alone would have sent entire cities into chaos. Dr. Lisa Green's office was in a small building with a red cross painted on the door. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and gentle hands. When Jake brought Zekthara inside, she looked up from her desk and smiled. My goodness, she said. You're certainly not from around here. Please sit down. Let me take a look at those injuries. Zekthara sat on the examination table, which creaked under his weight. Dr. Green moved around him with professional calm, checking his cuts and bruises. She did not seem afraid of his claws or his sharp teeth. She just did her job. "These are healing remarkably fast," she said. "Your bone structure is fascinating. Much denser than human bones, and these scales, they're like natural armor. Evolution is amazing, isn't it?" "You are not afraid," Zekthara said. Dr. Green looked at him with kind eyes. "Should I be? You're hurt and you need help. That's all I see." She cleaned his wounds with gentle care. "Jake says you're from far away." "Well, everyone's from somewhere. What matters is that you're here now and you need medical attention." After the doctor finished, Jake took Zekthara to the garage. Tony Rivera was lying under an old truck working on the engine. When he slid out and saw the alien, his eyes went wide with excitement. "Wow," Tony said, wiping his hands on a rag. "You're definitely not human. That's so cool. Where are you from? How did you get here? Do you have a ship?" Jake explained about the crash. Tony's face lit up like a child seeing presents on Christmas morning. "A real spaceship? Can I see it? Can I help fix it? I've been working on engines my whole life, but I've never seen alien technology before." Zekthara was confused again. This human was excited about his ship, not afraid of what it might mean. Tony talked about engines and fuel systems and navigation. Computers like they were the most interesting things in the world. "I'll need to see the damage first," Tony said. "But I bet we can figure something out. Engines are engines, right? They all work on the same basic principles." That evening, Jake took Zekthara to his house for dinner. It was a simple home with a front porch and a garden. Jake's wife, Nancy, greeted them at the door. She was a small woman with brown hair and a warm smile. "So you're the visitor Jake told me about," she said. "Welcome to Pine Ridge. I hope you're hungry. I made extra just in case." The dinner table was set for 3. Nancy had cooked a meal of meat and vegetables that smelled wonderful. She served Zekthara a large portion and made sure he had everything he needed. The conversation was friendly and normal, like having dinner with old friends. "Jake tells me you're from far away," Nancy said. "It must be lonely, being so far from home," Zekthara nodded. He had never thought about loneliness before. The Kethvari were solitary hunters. They lived alone, fought alone, died alone. But sitting at this table with Jake and Nancy, he felt something he had never experienced. He felt welcomed out. Over the next few days, Zekthara explored Pine Ridge. He met more of the townspeople. Each encounter was the same. They were curious about him, but not afraid. They offered help without asking for anything in return. They treated him like a neighbor, not a threat. Ben Clark, the fire chief, showed him around the fire station. He explained how they fought forest fires and rescued people from dangerous situations. "We look out for each other here," Ben said. "That's what community means." Carol Wright, the school teacher, invited him to speak to her class about where he came from. The children asked him questions about space and other planets. They were fascinated by his appearance, but not scared. One little girl even asked if she could touch his scales. "They're so smooth," she said with wonder, "like a snake, but prettier." Zekthara found himself enjoying these interactions. For the first time in his life, he was not hunting or being hunted. He was simply existing among other beings who accepted him, but his confusion deepened when he witnessed what these humans called courage. A week after his arrival, the forest around Pine Ridge caught fire. Lightning had struck a dead tree during a storm, and the flames spread quickly through the dry undergrowth. Zekthara expected the humans to flee. Fire was dangerous. It could kill them easily. Any sensible creature would run away and find safety elsewhere. But the humans of Pine Ridge did the opposite. They organized, they planned. They worked together to fight the fire and save their town. Ben Clark led a team of firefighters into the burning forest. Jake went with them, along with several other volunteers. They carried heavy equipment and walked directly toward the danger. "There are hikers trapped up on Eagle Ridge," Ben told his team. "The fire has cut off their escape route. We need to get them out before the flames reach them." Zekthara followed the rescue team, staying back far enough to observe without interfering. He watched as the humans moved through smoke and flames, risking their lives to save strangers. They could have stayed safe in town, but they chose to help instead. The hikers were a family of 4, including 2 young children. They were trapped on a rocky outcrop with fire closing in from all sides. The only way out was through a narrow canyon that was already filling with smoke. "We'll get you out," Ben called to them. "Stay calm and follow us." The rescue took 3 hours. The humans worked in the heat and smoke, carrying the children when they got too tired to walk. Jake hurt his ankle on the rocky ground, but he kept going. 2 other volunteers suffered from smoke inhalation, but they did not give up when they finally reached safety. The rescued family was crying with relief and gratitude. The firefighters were exhausted and injured, but they were smiling. They had risked everything to save people they had never met before. "Why did you do that?" Zekthara asked Jake later that night. Jake looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean? You could have been killed." "The fire was dangerous. Those people were strangers to you. Why did you risk your life for them?" Jake thought about this for a moment, because it was the right thing to do. They needed help, and we could help them. That's what people do. "But you could have died," Zekthara insisted. "Maybe," Jake said, "but we didn't, and now that family gets to go home safe. That's worth the risk." Zekthara lay awake that night, thinking about what he had seen. In all his years of hunting, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans of Pine Ridge were not strong like the Kethvari. They were not fast or armored or equipped with natural weapons. But they had something his people did not have. They had each other. They worked together, helped each other, protected each other. When one was in danger, all of them responded. They did not calculate the odds or weigh the risks. They simply acted. It was the most confusing and fascinating thing he had ever witnessed. These creatures were not prey in any sense that he understood. They were not predators either. They were something else entirely. Something that might be more dangerous than either. 2 weeks after the forest fire, Zekthara was still trying to understand what he had witnessed. The humans had acted in ways that made no sense to him. They had put themselves in danger for strangers. They had worked together without any clear leader giving orders. They had risked everything for people they might never see again. Maria Santos, the school teacher, found him sitting by the lake one morning. She was a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes. She often came to the lake to think before school started. "You look troubled," she said, sitting down beside him on the wooden dock. "I am confused about your people," Zekthara said. "You do things that seem dangerous and foolish, but you survive. You even thrive. I do not understand how this is possible." Maria smiled. "What confuses you most?" "The fire," Zekthara said. "Your people ran toward danger instead of away from it. Where I come from, only the strongest survive. The weak are left behind. But here you save the weak. You help the injured. You protect the young and old. That's what makes us human," Maria said. "We don't leave people behind." "But how did you become the dominant species on your world? How did you survive without being the strongest or fastest?" Maria was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Would you like to know the real story of how humans conquered Earth? It's not what most people think." Zekthara nodded. He was hungry for answers. "Millions of years ago, our ancestors were not the strongest creatures on Earth," Maria began. "We were not the fastest or the most dangerous. We were just another species of ape living in trees and eating fruit. And how did you survive?" "We learned to run," Maria said. "Not sprint, but run for long distances. We could chase animals for hours, even days. We would follow a deer or an antelope until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would kill it and eat it." Zekthara's eyes went wide. "You hunted by chasing prey until it died of tiredness?" "That's right, we call it persistence hunting. Other predators would give up after a few minutes or hours, but humans never stopped. We would track an animal for days if we had to. We would follow it through forests, across rivers, over mountains. We never gave up. The alien hunter felt a chill run down his spine. You never stopped chasing? Never, Maria said. If we wanted something, we kept going until we got it. That's how we survived. That's how we spread across the entire planet. We didn't need to be stronger or faster than our prey. We just needed to be more stubborn. She picked up a stone and threw it into the lake. The other animals on Earth learned to fear us. Not because we were big and scary, but because we never gave up. Lions and tigers would hunt for a few hours, then rest, but humans would hunt for days, weeks, even months if necessary. Zekthara thought about this. In all his years of hunting, he had relied on his strength and speed. He would attack his prey quickly and violently. If the first attack failed, he would usually give up and find easier prey. But these humans did the opposite. Tell me more, he said. Maria nodded. Our ancestors would pick a mammoth, an animal 10 times bigger than them. They would follow it for days, throwing spears and rocks. The mammoth would run away, but the humans would follow. They would track its footprints, follow its scent, chase it until it was too tired to fight back. And this worked? It worked so well that we killed most of the large animals on Earth. Mammoths, giant bears, cave lions. They all disappeared because humans hunted them to extinction. We were too good at never giving up. Zekthara was starting to understand something terrible. You are persistence predators. That's right, Maria said. And we still are. When we want something, we don't stop until we get it. When we love someone, we never stop loving them. When we make a promise, we keep it no matter what. She stood up and brushed off her skirt. That's why we ran into the fire to save those hikers. That's why Dr. Green heals everyone who needs help. That's why Jake brought you home instead of calling the authorities. Once we decide to care about someone, we never stop caring. Over the next few days, Zekthara began to see the humans of Pine Ridge differently. He watched them more carefully, looking for signs of this persistence that Maria had described. He saw it in Tony Rivera, who worked on broken engines for hours without stopping. Tony would take apart a motor piece by piece, clean every part, and put it back together. If it still didn't work, he would start over. He never gave up until the engine ran perfectly. He saw it in Dr. Green, who sat by the bedside of old Mr. Peterson for 3 days when he was sick with pneumonia. She checked on him every hour, gave him medicine, and talked to him even when he was unconscious. She never left his side until he was better. He saw it in the children at school, who would practice writing their letters over and over until they got them right. They would fall down while learning to ride bikes, get up, and try again. They never stopped trying, but the most dramatic example came when 7-year-old Amy Chun went missing in the forest. She had been playing near the edge of town when she wandered off chasing a butterfly. When her parents realized she was gone, they called for help. Within an hour, the entire town was organized for a search. Carol Wright, the former military officer who taught at the school, took charge of the operation. She divided the forest into sections and assigned teams to search each area. We'll find her, Carol told Amy's parents. We won't stop looking until we bring her home. The search began at sunset. Teams of volunteers spread out through the forest with flashlights and radios. They called Amy's name and listened for any sound that might be her voice. When night fell, they kept searching. Zekthara joined the search, using his superior senses to track through the darkness. He could see the determination in the humans' faces. They were tired, cold, and worried, but they did not give up. The first night passed with no sign of Amy. The second day brought rain, which made tracking harder. Many of the volunteers had jobs to go to, families to care for, responsibilities to meet, but they stayed in the forest, searching. She's just a child, Jake said when Zekthara asked why they didn't give up. She's scared and alone. We can't leave her out there. The second night was colder. The volunteers built fires to stay warm, but they never stopped searching. They took turns sleeping for a few hours, then got up and continued looking. On the third day, Zekthara found Amy's trail. She had followed a creek deeper into the forest, gotten lost, and built a small shelter under a fallen tree. She was hungry and scared, but alive. When the rescue team reached her, Amy ran into Carol's arms crying. The whole town celebrated as they carried her home. Her parents wept with relief and gratitude. 3 days, Zekthara said to Maria later. Your people searched for 3 days without stopping. Of course we did, Maria said. She's one of ours. We don't leave our people behind. But she is just one child. There are thousands of humans in this region. Why risk so many people for just one? Maria looked at him with surprise. Because she matters. Every single person matters. That's what makes us human. That night, Zekthara lay awake thinking about what he had learned. The humans were not just persistence predators. They were persistence protectors. They applied their endless determination not just to hunting, but to caring. For each other, they would search for 3 days to find one lost child. They would run into fires to save strangers. They would sit by sick beds for days without sleeping. They would work on broken engines until their hands bled. They would never, ever give up on someone they cared about. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zekthara felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, not fear of being hurt or killed, but fear of understanding what these creatures really were. They were not prey. They were not even predators in the way he understood the word. They were something much more dangerous than either. They were a species that had learned to apply the most terrifying force in the universe to everything they did. They had learned to love with the same relentless determination that their ancestors had used to hunt mammoths to extinction. A month after Amy Chun's rescue, Zekthara made a discovery that changed everything he thought he knew about the universe. Kevin Moore, the town librarian, had offered to teach him about human history using the computers at the library. You seem curious about how we humans work, Kevin said, typing on the keyboard. The internet has everything. History, science, news, entertainment, it's all here. Zekthara watched as images and words appeared on the screen. Kevin showed him pictures of human cities, human art, human inventions. But then Kevin pulled up something that made the alien's blood freeze. Here's some military history, Kevin said casually. Humans have fought a lot of wars over the years. Some of them lasted decades. The screen showed images of human soldiers in different time periods. Men and women carrying weapons, marching through mud and snow, fighting in jungles and deserts, and cities. What terrified Zekthara was not the violence, but the duration. This war lasted 4 years, Kevin said, clicking on a picture. This one lasted 30 years. This one went on for 100 years. 100 years? Zekthara asked. Oh yes, the 100 Years' War between England and France. Generations of people were born, lived, and died during that conflict. But neither side would give up. Kevin showed him more examples. Wars that lasted decades, battles that went on for months. Sieges where armies surrounded cities for years, waiting for the defenders to surrender. Here's an interesting one, Kevin said. The siege of Leningrad during World War II, the enemy surrounded the city and cut off all food supplies. The people inside were starving, but they refused to surrender. The siege lasted 872 days. 872 days, Zekthara whispered. Almost 2.5 years. People were eating leather and boiling wallpaper for food, but they never gave up. Eventually, their army broke through and saved the city. Zekthara stared at the screen in horror. His own people, the mighty Kethvari, had never fought a war longer than a few months. When resistance was too strong, they would move on to easier targets. But humans fought for years, decades, even centuries. Show me more, he said. Kevin pulled up information about human exploration. Pictures of men and women in strange suits, walking on airless moons, diving to the bottom of oceans, climbing the highest mountains on Earth. We've been to the bottom of the deepest ocean trench, Kevin said. 11 kilometers down, where the pressure would crush any normal submarine. We've climbed every mountain on Earth, even the ones that kill most people who try. Why? Zekthara asked. Because they were there, Kevin said with a shrug. Humans like to see what's on the other side of things. We're curious. If there's a place we haven't been, we want to go there. The screen showed pictures of spacecraft. We've sent robots to every planet in our solar system. We've landed on Mars, Venus, Saturn's moons. We've even sent spacecraft outside our solar system into deep space. Zekthara's hands were shaking. You send your people to worlds that could kill them? All the time, Kevin said. Space is dangerous. The early astronauts knew they might die, but they went anyway. Some of them did die, but we kept going. That evening, Zekthara returned to his crashed ship in the forest. His communication system was still partially working. He activated the connection to his ship's computer and accessed the galactic database. Computer, he said. Search for all information about the species called humans from the planet Earth. The screen flickered to life. Data began to scroll past faster than most. Creatures could read it. But Zekthara's enhanced eyes caught every word. And what he read made him sick with fear. Species designation, Homo sapiens, planet of origin, Earth, Sol system. Classification, Death World persistence hunters, threat level, extreme. Contact protocol. Do not engage. Computer, explain the classification, Zekthara said. The computer's voice was flat and emotionless. Humans are classified as persistence hunters from a Class 10 Death World. They have spread to multiple star systems despite possessing no natural weapons or armor. Their defining characteristic is absolute refusal to accept defeat. Show me contact reports, Zekthara said. File after file appeared on the screen. Reports from different alien civilizations that had encountered humans over the past century. The Zephyrians had tried to enslave a human colony. The humans fought back for 15 years until every Zephyrian on the planet was dead. The Mokari had attempted to claim a human mining station. The humans sent a single message, leave now or we will make you leave. When the Mokari refused, the humans spent 3 years building weapons and ships. Then they hunted down every Mokari fleet in that sector of space. The Vorthan Empire had bombarded a human world from orbit, killing millions of civilians. They thought the survivors would surrender. Instead, the humans spent 50 years preparing their revenge. When they were ready, they destroyed the Vorthan homeworld and every colony in their empire. Computer, what happened to the Kethvari expeditions sent to human space? Zekthara asked. No Kethvari expeditions have been sent to human space. Humans are classified as too dangerous for contact. Zekthara's legs felt weak. He sat down heavily on a piece of wreckage from his ship. The galaxy's most feared predators, his own people, were afraid of humans. Not because humans were stronger or more violent, but because they never stopped. The next day, Sheriff Danny Price visited Zekthara at the library. Danny was a retired military officer who had served in something called the Marines. He was friendly and easygoing, but there was something hard in his eyes that reminded Zekthara of veteran warriors. Kevin tells me you're interested in military history, Danny said. I've got some documentaries at home if you want to see them. That evening, Zekthara sat in Danny's living room watching videos of human warfare. What he saw was worse than anything in the galactic database. Humans fighting in frozen trenches for months. Humans crossing oceans in ships to fight on distant continents. Humans parachuting from aircraft into enemy territory, knowing most of them would die. This is the D-Day invasion, Danny said, pointing at the screen. We landed 150,000 troops on a heavily defended beach. We knew thousands would die in the first hour. But we did it anyway because it was the only way to win the war. The screen showed young human soldiers running through gunfire, climbing over obstacles, fighting their way inch by inch up a beach covered with their dead comrades. They kept coming, Danny said quietly. No matter how many fell, more kept coming. The enemy had never seen anything like it. Why did they not retreat? Zekthara asked. Because retreating meant losing. And humans don't lose. We might get beaten in a battle, but we never lose the war. We just keep trying until we win. Danny showed him more footage. Humans fighting in jungles where the trees themselves were poisonous. Humans fighting in deserts where the heat could kill them. Humans fighting in cities that had been bombed to rubble. Here's something from my time in the service, Danny said. Afghanistan. We were chasing terrorists through mountains for 20 years. 20 years, Zek. Most of the soldiers who finished that war weren't even born when it started. 20 years? Zekthara whispered. That's nothing. We fought in Vietnam for 20 years too, Iraq for 8 years. World War II for 6 years? The Civil War for 4 years. We'd been fighting the war on drugs for 50 years. Danny paused the video and looked at Zekthara. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our weapons or our technology. It's that we never give up, ever. If you hurt one of us, we'll hunt you to the ends of the universe. If you threaten our families, we'll fight you for generations. If you try to destroy us, we'll keep coming back until there's nothing left of you. That night, Zekthara walked through Pine Ridge, looking at the humans with new eyes. These friendly, helpful people who had welcomed him into their town were the same species that had terrified entire galactic civilizations. Jake Morrison, who had offered to help a crashed alien without hesitation, belonged to a species that had fought wars for decades without surrendering. Dr. Green, who healed anyone who needed help, came from a world where humans climbed mountains that killed most who tried, just to see what was at the top. Little Amy Chun, who had been lost in the forest, would grow up to be part of a species that sent people to other planets knowing they might never come home. Maria Santos, who taught children to read and write, was part of a civilization that would spend 50 years planning revenge against anyone who hurt their people. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zekthara understood why his ship's computer had classified humans as do not engage. It wasn't because they were physically dangerous. It was because they were emotionally dangerous. They loved too much, they cared too much, they tried too hard. They never gave up on anything or anyone they considered important, and now, somehow, he had become important to them. The humans of Pine Ridge had adopted him into their community. They had made him one of their own, which meant that if anyone tried to hurt him, these friendly, peaceful humans would become the most terrifying force in the galaxy. They would hunt his enemies across the stars with the same determination. They had used to find one lost child in a forest. The thought should have made him feel safe. Instead, it made him more afraid than he had ever been in his life. 6 weeks after his crash, Zekthara thought he finally understood humans. They were persistence predators who never gave up. They were the most feared species in the galaxy. They were dangerous beyond imagination. But he was wrong. He was about to learn that everything he thought he knew was just the beginning. The lesson came when his ship's emergency beacon finally broke through Earth's atmosphere and reached space. The signal was weak, but it was enough. 3 days later, a Kethvari hunting ship entered Earth's solar system. Zekthara's communicator crackled to life while he was helping Tony work on an old truck engine. The voice that came through was cold and familiar. Hunter Zekthara, this is War Leader Gekmar. We have tracked your signal. Prepare for extraction. We will arrive at your location in 2 planetary rotations. Zekthara's blood went cold. Gekmar was his pack leader, a massive Kethvari warrior who had led their people in conquering 4 star systems. He was ruthless, efficient, and utterly without mercy. Tony, Zekthara said quietly, I need to speak with Jake immediately. Tony looked up from the engine, grease covering his hands. Sure thing, he's probably at the ranger station. Everything okay? No, Zekthara said. Everything is very wrong. An hour later, Zekthara sat in the ranger station with Jake, Dr. Green, and Mayor Patricia Bell. He had explained about the incoming Kethvari ship and what it meant. So they're coming to take you home, Patricia said. She was a middle-aged woman who had been mayor of Pine Ridge for 10 years. That's good news, isn't it? No, Zekthara said. It is the worst possible news. Gekmar will not just take me. He will study this world and its people. He will see that you are not defended. He will recommend that the Empire send a full invasion fleet. How long do we have? Jake asked. 2 days, maybe less. Dr. Green leaned forward in her chair. What exactly are we dealing with? How dangerous? Are these Kethvari? Zekthara closed his eyes. A single Kethvari warrior can kill 20 humans before you could even wound him. Gekmar is bringing at least 5 warriors. Their ship has weapons that could destroy this entire town in minutes. Then we need to evacuate, Patricia said. Get everyone out of Pine Ridge before they arrive. It will not matter, Zekthara sighed. They will track you down. They will question you about me, about your world, about your defenses. And when they have learned what they need to know, they will kill you all. The room was quiet for a long moment. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful town where people were going about their daily lives. What if? We fight? Jake asked. Zekthara laughed bitterly. With what? Your hunting rifles, your police pistols? You cannot fight the Kethvari with such weapons. Then what do you suggest? Patricia asked. Give me to them, Zekthara said. Tell them I was unconscious and you were caring for me. Tell them you know nothing about my mission or my people. Maybe they will spare you. No, Jake said firmly. Jake. You do not understand, Zekthara said. These are not humans. They will not listen to reason. They will not show mercy. They are killers. So are we, Jake said quietly. That evening, Mayor Patricia Bell called an emergency town meeting. The community center was packed with every adult in Pine Ridge. Patricia stood at the front of the room with Zekthara beside her. Folks, she said, we have a situation. Zekthara's people are coming to take him back, and they might not be as friendly as he is. She explained the situation in simple terms. Hostile aliens were coming to Pine Ridge. They were dangerous. They might hurt the town to get to Zekthara. So what are our options? Asked Carol Wright from the back of the room. We could evacuate, Patricia said. Pack up and leave town until they're gone. And abandon Zek? Tony Rivera stood up from his seat. No way, he's one of us now. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ben Clark raised his hand. What's the other option? Patricia looked uncomfortable. We could fight. But Zekthara says we wouldn't stand a chance. He's probably right, said Danny Price. But that's never stopped humans before. An old man in the front row raised his hand. I'm 82 years old. I've lived through wars, natural disasters, and economic depressions. I'm not about to let some alien bullies scare me out of my own town. More voices joined in. People who had lived in Pine Ridge their whole lives. People who had raised families. Here, built businesses here, found love here. They were not about to abandon their home or their friend. Carol Wright stood up. I used to be an officer in the army. I can help organize our defenses. I know every inch of these mountains, said Jake. I can set up observation posts. I can treat wounded, said Dr. Green. I can keep communications running, said Kevin Moore. One by one, the people of Pine Ridge volunteered to defend their town and their alien friend. Zekthara watched in amazement. As an entire community prepared to fight against impossible odds. You do not understand, he said desperately. These warriors have killed thousands. They have destroyed entire civilizations. You cannot win. Old Mr. Peterson stood up slowly, leaning on his walking stick. Son, my grandfather fought in World War I. My father fought in World War II. I fought in Korea. My son fought in Vietnam. My grandson fought in Afghanistan. We've never picked a fight we knew we could win. We just pick the fights that need fighting. The next day, Pine Ridge transformed. Carol Wright organized the defense like a military operation. She placed armed volunteers at key positions around the town. Danny Price coordinated with state authorities. Though he didn't tell them the full truth about what was coming, Jake and several other woodsmen set up observation posts in the mountains. They would spot the alien ship as soon as it entered the atmosphere. Dr. Green prepared her clinic for casualties. Kevin Moore set up emergency communications. Tony Rivera and his mechanics worked frantically on a special project in the garage. They were building something that might give them a fighting chance. It's not much, Tony said, showing Zekthara their work. But it might surprise them. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Zekthara sat on Jake's front porch. Nancy Morrison brought him a cup of coffee and sat down beside him. You're scared, she said. Yes, Zekthara admitted. Not for myself, for all of you. You do not know what you are facing. Maybe not, Nancy said. But we know what we're protecting. This town, these people, our way of life. And you? I am not worth your lives, Nancy smiled. That's not your decision to make. We've adopted you, Zekfara. Your family now, and we don't abandon family. The next morning, Jake's radio crackled to life. Jake, this is Mountain Post 3. We've got something big coming down through the clouds. Whatever it is, it's not from around here. Zekthara's heart pounded as he listened to the reports. The Kethvari ship was landing in the forest near his crash site, just as he had expected. How long before they reached town? Carol Wright asked over the radio. 2 hours, maybe 3, came the reply. Carol's voice was calm and professional. All units, this is command. Take your positions. Remember, protect the town and protect our friend. We've got work to do. As the people of Pine Ridge prepared for battle, something else was happening that none of them knew about. Miles away, in government buildings and military bases, phones were ringing and computers were flashing urgent alerts. The alien ship's arrival had been detected by satellites and radar stations. Within minutes, the information reached the highest levels of government. Emergency protocols were activated. Military units began moving toward the area, but they were too far away to help Pine Ridge in time. In the forest, 5 Kethvari warriors emerged from their ship. They were huge, armored, and armed with weapons that could cut through steel. War leader Gekmar studied the readings on his scanner. The traitor's signal comes from that settlement, he growled to his warriors. We will retrieve him and eliminate. Any witnesses? What if the humans resist? Asked one of the warriors. Gekmar's laugh was like the sound of breaking bones. Humans do not resist Kethvari. They run or they die. The war party began moving toward Pine Ridge, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that they were about to face something that no Kethvari had ever encountered before. They were about to face humans who had something to protect. As the alien warriors approached through the forest, the people of Pine Ridge waited, quietly at their posts. They were scared, but they were determined. They had made their choice. They would not run. They would not surrender. They would not abandon their friend or their home. They would fight, because that's what humans do when something they love is threatened. And somewhere in space, other civilizations would soon learn why the galaxy fears humanity.